Don Batard.
Texture writes in, does Rob Ryan chew his food? No. He swallows pizza whole. He eats pizza like a pelican.
Stugotz.
The way that Rob Ryan eats pizza is he goes down and he grabs the crust with his mouth, and then he flips it up in the air to himself and then swallows the piece of pizza whole without any chewing and just sort of wiggles his head and neck around so that it slides down the eating pipe.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Dan Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And now your SportsCenter update. Gene Smith, Ohio State Senior Vice President and Wolf Foundation Endowed Athletics Director, announced the hiring of Butler's Chris Holtmann as the next head men's basketball coach of the Buckeyes. The Houston Astros have placed pitcher Dallas Keuchel back on the 10-day disabled list due to neck discomfort. He was previously on the 10-day DL for a pinched nerve in his back. And finally, a New York appeals court says chimpanzees don't have the same rights as people. For all the latest headlines and information, tune into SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. Now, this isn't why we decided to have Steve Levy on the show today, but let's try to get to the bottom of this with Steve Levy. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate the time.
How you guys doing?
Doing fantastic, man. Doing fantastic. So why is it the Stanley Cup Final versus, like, in the NBA being the finals?
There's only one, guys.
So have we been just saying it wrong in the NBA the whole time?
No, it's by design. You can look at their artwork on both. And then before the Stanley Cup Final every year, I take a picture of the ice, and I'm like, people, it's singular, NBA is plural, and that's just the way it is. And I think they like to differentiate themselves from each other. And Stanley Cup Final seems to be special. Look, you guys know everything about hockey is different. Everything about the personalities, the players themselves, the way they go about their business, the way they conduct themselves off the ice in a lot of ways. And so why shouldn't the name of their championship series be different also?
The Chicago Tribune did an investigation, and they came upon the answer based on responses from the NHL and the NBA and an expert from the University of Chicago that both forms are grammatically correct, since final is a noun that has a singular and plural form, and you can either view it as a collection of singular events that make one final or a finals because it consists of several parts.
Someone actually put a lot of time into that, huh?
There you go.
Pretty good.
So another thing that we didn't necessarily have you on to ask you about, but when we were doing our pre-show fist fight, talking about what we wanted to talk about, This came up. I feel like, just from my perspective, sort of from afar, where I wasn't watching the Canadians every single day and paying attention to the intricacies of their dynamics, that I was surprised by the trade of PK Subban and continue to be surprised by those who don't like him, particularly someone like an announcer like Mike Milbury, who, of course, has quite a history, but coming out and saying things like he's a clown who should get a rap on the head or he had this coming. Why do you think there is so much animus towards PK Subban?
He is a polarizing figure, there is no doubt, and it is rare. Look, he's a legitimate superstar, so I don't know, there aren't many one-on-one superstar trades in all of sports, right? I mean, that's a pretty rare thing. Usually it's a contract dump or to acquire a draft pick. These are two superstars of the league. One is certainly in his prime, and PK and maybe Shea Weber is a little, into the second part of his career, but so that was rare to begin with. But I think you have to look at the culture, and some of that's kind of what I said before. Hockey sort of conducts themselves differently on the ice and off. The players are not about the celebration, right? It's very rare when someone goes wild after a goal celebration. Most of the time, you put your arm in the air and you wait for your teammates to surround you, and that's it. And so PK is flamboyant. I don't know if you've caught the way he dresses. I mean, he dresses unhockey-like. He wears a purple suit and a black fedora, and he might be wearing the same suit every single game because that's the only outfit I've seen him in outside of his uniform. Maybe that's a superstitious luck thing. So he's different, but I think he's good for the game. I love what PK is all about. He is fun to watch on the ice. He's real cool off the ice as well. And by the way, he's an outstanding player. He's a terrific player who has changed his game for the better of the team. Melrose used to like to joke that he was dangerous in all three zones in Montreal, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He's a great offensive player, but, gave up some chances in his own end. But in Nashville, he's totally changed his game. He's a shutdown defenseman now. He's playing against the top line of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that's why he finds himself on the ice against Crosby all the time.
Sorry, Izzy, but since Dan isn't here, I have to ask it. Your description of hockey and their embrace or disinterest in PK and his style sounds a lot like this sort of baseball play the game the white way, where there's this new versus old, and a lot of it comes down to race and expectation.
It's different. It's different. I think they've been doing it 100 years this way. I'm not willing to throw race into it. It's the same thing. Hey, we've been fighting in hockey forever. Fighting's been legal outside of a 5-minute penalty, now hockey's gotten away from it. But you know what? You still don't get kicked out of the game for fighting, and so I think everybody would agree that fighting is now wrong. Right? We've seen the concussions, we've seen all the head injuries. Bare knuckle fighting is wrong in a lot of the sports, and yet hockey still does it their way. So they've been playing hockey, and hockey players have been acting this way for a long time, and it's been an accepted part of the game. It's slowly going away. I do think we'll get away from it. I think we're probably 5 or 6 years away from hockey. You know, you get in a fight, you get kicked out, not just a 5-minute penalty. But they have their traditions, and he's a different cat. He's a different guy.
We are chilling in the Levy Lounge this afternoon,
and I just want to add, he fits in perfectly in Nashville, which is one of the great entertainment capitals of the world. He showed up there, guys, right after the trade we talked about. And he was on stage at Tootsie's.
At the Honky Tonks, right on Broadway.
Johnny Cash. I mean, how cool was that?
That's
and
awesome.
that, too, is un-hockey-like, right? Hockey guys aren't getting on stage by themselves. They sort of fall back into
everything
the group.
you're saying is sort of disproved by the Blackhawks, but they might be more the outlier because they do celebrate like crazy after goals. Guys like Patrick Kane with the fist pumps and the sliding across the ice, and they are out in Chicago doing live band karaoke and partying with everybody. So I don't know if maybe it's partly based on like the city and the franchise.
It's some of the personalities, right? But for the most part, I think it's just, it's a quiet. It's not a look at me. It's a team first kind of thing. And like I said, PK has bought into the system. He did not have to change his game, and I'm telling you, he has revolutionized his personal game for the better of that team. We had him on the other night. He's blocking shots in Nashville. He didn't do that in Montreal. He was all go offense in Montreal for the most part, and in Nashville, he's changed. He's a shutdown defenseman. It's rare you see a star player change his role completely. And to PK's credit, he really has. It's a lot like Steve Yzerman. If you want to go back in the day, Yzerman was all offense, right? 100-point guy, 50-goal guy. And Scotty Bowman said, "Hey, we need you to change for the better of the team." And Steve became much more defensive-minded as a center iceman, and they went on to win Stanley Cups.
Tootsie's is a very different establishment here in South Florida. Subban would not be on stage there.
You know what? I said that too. We did Sports Center from Tootsie's, and I said this is the only Tootsie's in America that is a country bar
that you could do a show from. How about that?
Yeah.
Steve. So the beginning of this Subban Crosby beef had to do with the Listerine comment or the bad breath comment turned into a big thing, and then yesterday it looked like Sidney Crosby was sort of digging Subban's face into the ice when they were both on the ice. Let's listen to this sound from Crosby explaining what exactly happened there and get your response to that, Levy.
He was doing some UFC move on my foot, so I don't know what he was trying to do, but I was trying to get out of there. He had lost a stick. He's just trying to hold me down, and I don't know what he was trying to do to my ankle. But
is that why you hit his head a little bit?
I was just trying to. I was in some kind of lock he had going on there. I don't know what it was.
Lies.
I don't see that. I watched the clip 12 times this morning. I do not see him pulling a UFC move on his ankle.
I think he's just holding on to him. But Barry and I both said last night, Crosby's got to get the extra 2 minutes there.
Yeah.
Does Sid get preferential treatment? He's the face of the league, probably. If it was against someone else other than Subban, who is also a controversial figure, maybe it does happen. But Subban isn't shy to this kind of stuff too. He's involved. He's in his face, and that's a good trade for Nashville. Anytime they can get Crosby off the ice for 2 minutes.
So what do you expect out of the next game? Do you see, Preds have been outstanding at home. Do you see them forcing a Game 7?
I don't. Everybody else does, because I think that's the great story. I don't think so. I think Pittsburgh's the better team. I think Nashville knows they're the better team. The Predators have become, North America's sweethearts, not just America, North America. They've been such a great story. I've been rooting for them because I love the story. I love what they've done in Nashville. Every other franchise has been put on notice about the way they do their entertainment to try to, the bar has been raised because of the way Nashville has gone about their business on and off the ice. But I think Pittsburgh's just a better team. That was That was a beating last night. I mean, that wasn't even 6-0. That was 9-0. You know, and that score does not indicate that game was not nearly that close as 6-0 would tell you. So, I think Pittsburgh, it's just their time. And Pecorine, he probably needs a shutout or give up one goal, which is certainly possible. They could win 2-1. But we're in a time where we think home ice advantage is so overrated and nearly meaningless, as opposed to the NBA where it can mean a lot. And yet in this series, it's all been about the home team. So, hey, a 7-game series would be awesome. That'd be great for hockey, but I just think the Penguins probably win and end this on Sunday night.
Steve, how much steam does that take out of the Predators and their momentum, like you mentioned, them being North America's team, if they don't finish this off and win? Will it just be like, it was a nice little story, and then we kind of forget about them?
Look, they won't say this. They are playing with house money, right? No, in essence, they were the 16th seed. I mean, that's insanity, right? You can imagine the NBA, you can't even be the 5 seed and get to the championship. And then the 4 seed doesn't even get there. So to be the 16th seed and make it to Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final speaks volumes. So they've, this is a franchise that is on the up and up. You're going to see a lot of Nashville for years to come. They've got some great young players. Again, they're doing it right. And here's the other hidden thing that's not so hidden. We've sort of touched on it. This is going to be a free agent destination. Mm-hmm. What young hockey star who's a free agent would not want to play in Nashville? No state income tax, lots to look at, great weather, an unbelievable fan base. You know what I mean? People are going to want to come to Nashville, and I mean great hockey players, too.
Steve, you've honestly been one of my favorite anchors for a long time, so thanks for the time. It's a pleasure to talk to you every time I get a chance.
Hey, call me anytime. Call me at home if you want to, Izzy. That'd be fine, too.
Can we come over?
Come over anytime. I'm not going to be there.
Watch the game.
I'm not going to be there, but watch you come over.
That's no deal then.
Don Batard.
How much does the watch cost, Ludacris? How much?
I don't know. I got it for free. That's a good question.
Stugotz.
That's an indelicate question, right? You don't ask a woman what she weighs, and you don't ask a hip-hop star what his jewelry's worth, do you?
That's why he let me ask the question.
You really don't.
This is the Don Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
If you missed any of the show, you can listen to all 3 hours of the Dan Le Batard Show on demand in the ESPN app, plus our Miami-only hour that airs before the show. And now you can subscribe to our Best Of podcast. It's all available in the Listen tab of the ESPN app. We're proud to share that Mike and Mike have been nominated for the National Radio Hall of Fame, and this vote will be determined by the fans. Vote by text or online at radiovote.com. Text 49400 and send the message 70 for Mike and Mike. Again, that's 49400 and send the message 70 to vote for Mike and Mike. Or go online at www.radiovote.com and cast your vote there.
Chair getting to you?
One vote's permitted by cell and email address. Voting closes June 19th. The chair is just a theory because
I'm in a
different chair and I still can't.
Oh. So
it's just a lot of reading. I get I feel terrible for Stugotz. Like our Miami only hour is tough to say if you're trying to say it fast.
I'm looking forward to my shot in the chair. I feel extremely confident.
And you have to get down to the warm weather. Well, it's all warm
I'm going to do accents like a me, and that's how confident I am.
I can read. I don't have confidence in my accents. A couple quick tweets.
Whatever. You crushed the on Around the Horn Halloween episode. You carried that Conor McGregor accent for the whole show.
And it took weeks of practice. Like,
really?
In my car, I'm sitting there just randomly repeating stuff that they say on the radio in an Irish accent to see if I can pull it off.
I had 2 accents on that show, and I listened to Adele for like 10 minutes before the show started. I was like, and here we go.
Yeah. It's not my strong suit, is impersonating others. So a couple quick tweets, and these are hilarious. Talking about race, Steve Levy goes into a 10-minute soliloquy on the history of fighting.
Some people thought he sort of avoided my question.
And here's another tweet. You guys know that they don't like PK Subban because he's a black man. All those code words, flashy, etc. FOH. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and step away from that subject real quick.
Okay, Stugotz.
We'll cannonball out of here and shift over to Cannonball! It sounds so much more fun to just be in a pool party instead of talking about race and getting people mad at you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can jump in the pool. It's heavy that way. So, getting back to this idea, I asked Kevin Arnovitz about the Warriors kind of looking ahead and being a potential evil empire, right? Like, it's hard, and he said it's hard to dislike them, especially if you like basketball, because they're so much fun to watch. And Steph Curry has a likable quality about him. But we've talked about this, you and I have, Sarah. Maybe he's a bit of a trash talker, and we just kind of let it go because he's cutesy-wootsy. But really, he does this a lot. He really is a flashy player. And here's what he had to say in terms of getting trash-talked or trash-talking to others because he had that little fracas with Iman Shumpert in Game 3.
I mean, I smile and laugh and have fun and play with joy and all that's kind of who I am. But, yeah, I have a killer instinct in me. There's a toughness about me that, I'm out on the floor. You can't really just try to push me around or try to be physical. That really doesn't get under my skin at all. Last night was it was much ado about nothing, to be honest with you. And it was a situation where you're just talking. And at this point, you know that when two guys kind of get into it, chirping a little bit, there's going to be a reaction around on the floor from the refs, from teams, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't trash talk much. I'm not afraid to talk back if I need to, but I try to stay out of those situations and not get distracted from what I'm trying to do on the floor from an execution standpoint and just doing my thing.
Sarah, I think somebody who gets trash talked that is as good as Steph is and is as sort of physically, not really intimidating, right? His physical stature. I think they need to trash talk back even more aggressively, or even smarter or wittier, because you're just going to get talked down to because they think you're the little guy, and like LeBron last year, turning around and looking at him, staring at him, and talking some trash after he blocked him. So I think in that respect, Steph probably, in terms of talking directly to his opponents, I wouldn't mind if he does it more.
Right. I don't think he probably does it that much to his opponents. It's more the sort of abstract, right? It's the kicking after the shot and the kind of shimmy shakes and the giggles and the grins. He doesn't bother me. You've brought this up before that you think that he's more that you view his trash talking more negatively than I do. I think he's incredibly impish, and I realize that part of that is his size and his baby face, and the way that I view him is very much affected by his physicality. But I have always been for the showiness of sports. I like celebrations, and I like swagger, and I even like Draymond most of the time when he's being demonstrative, not when he's kicking people or playing outside the rules of basketball, but I like a demonstrative player, and they're all very different in the way that they showcase themselves. But Steph's never bothered me in that way.
Yeah, I don't think of it I don't think of it negatively. It doesn't bother me. I'm just saying the way he's viewed is not as somebody who's, a trash talker or a showman, and he is absolutely those things. But this is what's funny to me, because there are certain things that he can do to tick people off, in large part because he is this sort of clean-cut, everyman type of guy.
Right, and it's like, this is a bad analogy to use because it doesn't always work this way, but it's sort of like the girlfriend who says something to a guy at a game, knowing that guy's not going to fight her, he's going to fight the boyfriend that she's with. It's sort of like he knows that in almost any circumstance, even if he's the instigator, the guy who's picking on him is going to look worse.
Right.
Because he's just Steph, and he's cute and likable, and he's just having fun out there.
Unless he takes a poop on the court.
Literally?
No, which is what he seemed to mimic during Game 3. And
I did see that.
Right, and he was asked about it.
Did you buy that as a I didn't buy that conspiracy theory.
Let's hear Steph, because he was asked about it yesterday.
It's all spontaneous. I wish I could have a little bit more control over the reactions in certain situations. I really don't know what I did last night. I saw it. No, I saw it. I don't know what I was doing. And I even dropped my mouthpiece because I was so uncoordinated in that sense. So,
first of all,
you can't wear a mouthpiece while you're taking a dump.
Well, that guy does not know how to wear a mouthpiece, period. So that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, it's never in his mouth.
You can't tell me that guy is uncoordinated, first of all. Second of all, rather. But I do believe that he doesn't know what he did. It was just an awkward celebration. But that means it doesn't rule out the, maybe in a split second I decided to mock pooping on the floor.
Right. It's sort of like Kevin Durant and Rihanna. I actually don't remember that. I'm not sure what was going on there. It slipped my mind.
Yeah. But if he does stuff like that, if he goes over the top with it, I think people are just going to be like,
I think that's just crass, too. It's not the joyful trash talking and the swagger that we like. It's just crassness, which is very different.
And you wouldn't expect that from him.
And not from him. Right, I was going to say, if it's Chad Ochocinco, was he the one who pretended to poop the football?
Oh, I'm not sure. No. That was a lot more recently. That was a lot more recently than Chad Ochocinco.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if it's somebody that is known for like pushing the envelope, then that's
Doug Baldwin.
Doug Baldwin. There you go. Then it's cool. But I think part of it is your quote unquote brand, right? So if the nature of your trash talking fits in with what we expect from you, and for Steph, that's a very like swagger, like just like fun, joyful way of expressing himself. I think where it would take a turn is if he seemed really nasty. I think people wouldn't feel like that was genuine, and then that would turn them against him.
I want Steph, after they win this championship, to not even be veiled about it, to just flat out say he was upset at LeBron last year in the finals, and that he really, really, really wanted this, and he really wanted it to be against LeBron. Which
would be surprising because we've seen both of these teams completely posture about their rivalry, right? Oh, they're not a rival. We just make cookies of their gravestones.
Right, exactly. Not a rival at all. We'll get into more NBA Finals. It's Izzy Gutierrez and Sarah Spain filling in for Dan Le Batard and Stugotz. I should probably mention that a little bit more often.
Dan Le Batard.
Stugotz listens very poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he was listening right there.
I wasn't.
Stugotz.
He makes sounds like that to disguise when he's not listening. He's got an assortment of weaponry in the case for sounds. He's making them all right now. All the sounds that he makes when he's not listening.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And now your SportsCenter update. The IOC has added 3-on-3 basketball as an Olympic event for the 2020 Tokyo Games. LeVar Ball said his two younger sons, LiAngelo and LaMelo, will definitely only spend one season in college, and he will do whatever he can to reunite them with Lonzo Ball in the NBA. No matter what, LeVar told ESPN on Thursday of the younger sons being one-and-done players. And finally, a diamond ring purchased for $13 has sold for $847,667, roughly double its initial estimated value, at the Sotheby's Fine Jewels auction in London last night. Thank you, Sarah. The 26-carat ring was first purchased in the 1980s by an anonymous seller who bought the jewel at a car boot sale under the assumption that it was a piece of costume jewelry. The startling realization of the ring's true value came decades later when the wearer chose to have the ring appraised by a local jeweler. The ring was later identified as a cushion-shaped diamond set in a 19th century mount.
Wow.
For all the latest headlines and information, tune into SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. Real quick, I want to ask you guys this, and Sarah. Good headline or bad headline for the New York Jets right here? Good headline or bad headline? Christian Hackenberg hits reporters with passes during Jets OTAs.
Oh.
That's got to
go with bad.
Bad headline, right?
Bad headline. Bad headline.
You're not aiming for the reporters there, so that is.
Maybe they were doing like a get the reporters on the field day. They got to take some passes.
I mean, you have to be really far off if you're missing your target and hitting reporters because. I mean, I've been to football practices before. We're usually actually in the stands. So if you're hitting reporters in the stands, that's a problem, but you're at least hitting them out of bounds.
I mean, I guess the plus side is you added the with passes part because I was ready to jump in with bad.
That is better.
It's not David Price.
That is
I'm
better.
Just kidding.
So every once in a while, Dan likes to tell some stories around here. And apparently, Sarah, you are filling in for Dan. So you have a story?
It's story time, and I have just uncovered a story that I find hilarious and amazing. And the context that you need for this is simply to know that there is a federal prison in Chicago, in downtown Chicago, just in the midst of all of the major buildings and companies and everything else.
That is crazy.
There is a
not
I want to
like
say
how it's supposed to go.
A 27-floor federal prison opened in 1975. It has a rooftop exercise yard. And you can literally, if you're across the street, I have done this before, you can see people in orange jumpsuits playing basketball on top of this building when you're in downtown Chicago. Okay, so that's all you need to know about this place. And then here is the story that has just been uncovered. The first time she witnessed a naked woman gyrating on the roof of a parking garage across from the federal jail in downtown Chicago, Brianna Fitzgibbons couldn't believe what she was seeing. I come from a town of 300 people in the middle of the fields in Minnesota, so it was weird, really weird, said Fitzgibbons, a graduate student in Chicago at the time, as Fitzgibbons watched from her high-rise apartment nearby and the woman on the top floor of the parking garage danced on that sultry September night. Lights flickered off and on behind the narrow windows of the Metropolitan Correctional Center. That's how detainees held at the 27-story jail, operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons across the street from the parking garage, show their appreciation for the strippers who perform for them. People familiar with the performances told the Chicago Sun-Times. They say the displays put on for those in the jail have gone on for years, and they don't always involve stripping, according to Fitzgibbons. Some days the performances are strictly G-rated, she says. Once, a large group of what appeared to be family members, including children, gathered on the roof of the garage on Van Buren Street just west of Dearborn Street. They were there for hours, waving and taking pictures and everything, Fitzgibbons says. Another day, she said she was amazed to see 2 nude women on the roof who appeared to be performing sex acts for the inmates. The detainees arranged the shows to prove they're the top dogs in the jail, another source says. Often the women will flash money as well as skin to show how rich and powerful their boyfriends in jail are, he says. It doesn't appear that anyone has been arrested in connection with the jailhouse strip club. Prison authorities say they can't do anything about what's going on at the parking garage.
How long has this been going on?
The story continues and goes on to say potentially decades.
Huh. I mean, that's one way to show some power, right? Hey, look outside.
Right. That's my girl. Thaddeus T.J. Jimenez, a well-known Chicago gang leader who was held at the federal jail downtown, says some of the garage top shows were for him. In a brief interview, Jimenez says he didn't pay for the dances. A woman stripping on the roof for him was simply, quote, showing her love, according to Jimenez, who says she would sometimes stand on the roof of the garage holding a sign that said, "Free TJ."
I hope they didn't they have a schedule here, because I wouldn't like to double book where you've got the family coming in to do something nice.
Like, oh, wait, no, I got the 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right. She's clearly here for me. No,
yeah,
the sign clearly says TJ. Turn your eyes. This is just for me. Yeah, and there's... Yeah, I am amazed by all of these things. This is also a jail, by the way, that in 2012, 2 convicted bank robbers made a rope out of bed sheets and escaped through a hole they carved out of the window slot of their 17th floor cell and rappelled all the way to the street level in downtown Chicago. They both got caught within weeks, but it was a fairly embarrassing event for a federal prison that's directly in the midst of a town of millions of people.
Yeah, I think, Sarah, you should go on that in that garage and just hold up some random sign. Like, vote Mike and Mike for National Radio Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
Text 70.
Go to www.radiovote.com.
You got to do it. Like, you've at least got to find this place and just take some pictures.
Yeah, hold up a Warriors blew a 3-1 lead sign.
Just go with a bunch of my girlfriends wearing like 8 layers of clothes and then just do a sign that says "Never gonna get it."
Marlins man, go find him and go with him. He'll definitely get on TV.
He's always front row to the biggest events. Maybe he's unaware of this particular show.
Yeah, there's got to be a way.
Can't find tickets on StubHub. That's
so,
just amazing to me.
So this prison was built in the 70s, because I would have said, okay, I guess it makes sense in the middle of downtown Chicago because Chicago's an older city. Typically, these federal prisons are built way out in the middle of nowhere. But this was in the 70s. Just like Chicago was a major metropolis in the 70s. Why? It makes no sense.
It's very strange.
I also don't like the rooftop hangout. I feel like there's an escapability.
It's really weird. I was actually across the street from there filming a segment for SportsCenter at this big Cubs fan's office. And I look across and I'm like, what's going on over there? And we look harder and it's all the men in the orange jumpsuits playing basketball on the rooftop right in the middle of all these big, expensive buildings and companies. Pretty crazy.
Dan Le Batard.
Good work today. That was a fun show.
Stugotz.
It was also intergalactically stupid.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Funny tweet here from Mike Zimmer's ears. Ironically, none of the strippers at the prison dance in cages. There was a rumor I wanted to discuss, an NBA-related rumor, but before I get there, I wanted to let Mike discuss a rumor that has him a lot more excited than the one I was about to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Mark Stein tweets out, free agency scuttle. Great word. Uh-oh. Volume is rising on the whispers that the team Utah is worrying about when it comes to Gordon Hayward's free agency is Miami. They're worried about Miami just as much as Boston.
Oh, and they should be. If you're not worried about Pat Riley, you're making a mistake.
when the volume of the whisper is rising, does it then become a hushed tone or regular conversation?
Well, apparently they have risen to the level of a scuttle.
Ooh.
Is it like a scuttlebutt, just a little bit less?
It's a character limit at play, and that's what the scuttle's for.
That is a witty Mark Stein.
So how do you feel about the potential of this gentleman?
That'd be awesome.
Taking his talents to South Beach.
Are you kidding me? That'd be great. I don't know how Pat's going to swing it, but I mean, he's done a lot of he's done a lot of big swinging before. But taking Gordon Hayward, like if Gordon Hayward leaves Utah, taking him away from his college coach would be really impressive.
You're going to have to keep swinging because if your swings are Hassan Whiteside, Gordon Hayward, go get me a championship, that's not happening.
Now, it's not just his college coach, Brad Stevens, and a well-respected coach at that. The perception, and I think perception's a key word here, is that Boston is a lot closer than Miami because Miami missed the playoffs, obviously, and Boston went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they also have the number 1 overall pick, which is a huge asset, or at the very least, they get perceivably a good player, a really good player. Yeah. But if you look at how Miami ended the season and how generally those teams in the East, outside of Cleveland, anything can flip from year to year.
It has felt like even after LeBron left that Miami could still be a destination that would be hard to fight up, especially in Chicago. We're always losing players to other big markets and wondering why Chicago can't get them in. And with all of the benefits of being in Miami, and still, do you believe that Pat Riley still has the cachet of a guy who can create something?
Well, there's two camps, and Izzy could probably speak on this because a lot of fans out there might not understand why the Miami Heat sort of went for it. Even some of the fans were like, why aren't you tanking? If you're not making the playoffs, what's the point? Like, be as bad as possible. But I feel like the Miami Heat, in their turnaround, their midseason turnaround, really recovered a lot of that reputation that they had before. And rebuilding careers like James Johnson and Dion Waiters, they weren't a joke. No team wanted to see them in the playoffs. They were one of the best teams in the NBA after the All-Star break. So I feel like they really boosted up their rep, because before Waiters came back from that ankle injury, things were at probably an all-time low around here in terms of morale.
And it's just, there's I don't know if it's a karma or what have you, but there's just a feel for a championship-level franchise just feels dirty, like to tank like that. Like when the Lakers were kind of, it's just like, ooh, you're the Lakers. Like, what do you need to do that for?
I'm also kind of curious, like, there's this long-held belief that the way that Reinsdorf interacted with Jordan and others has turned people away from the Bulls organization. Riley now getting a lot of heat for how things ended with his players, but it's tempered by this sort of respect for him knowing when to cut the cord with guys who may not be at the top of their game. How do you view free agents seeing what kind of level of respect and loyalty they'll get from the Heat?
Pat's already been putting the work in on that. Like, you've read his quotes lately. He's, basically kissing butt of LeBron and Dwayne Wade. So he's repairing those publicly anyway, and I don't think it's going to be a factor whatsoever when it comes to other free agents.
And you saw they got a meeting with Kevin Durant when, they made it to the Eastern Conference semis, but they had no business getting a meeting, and they made an impression, obviously, because Durant had very positive quotes about the Miami Heat organization and Eric Spoelstra. So if you get him in a room, he's dangerous.
Spoelstra put in a really good bid for those who might not have respected his coaching skill and attributed too much of it to the talent he had.
So here's the rumor that I wanted to get to. Speaking of the Lakers, this is from the Ringer. Multiple sources I've spoken to think the Lakers or Clippers are viable destinations for King James when he's a free agent in 2018. Jalen Rose said this week on First Take that he expects LeBron to make a move from Cleveland to California, where he already owns a house 30 minutes away from Staples Center. I believe that was the one in Brentwood that got vandalized. The Lakers make sense if LeBron wants to build a sustainable winner with a core blend of veterans and youthful talent like Paul George. If, as NBA gossip suggests, George is truly hell-bent on going to L.A. The Clippers make sense if LeBron wants to form a banana boat Voltron with Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo Anthony. I think what's interesting to me about this, two things. One, if he leaves after next year, will that not have been 4 more years in Cleveland, right? 4 years in Miami, 4 years in Cleveland. Go somewhere else. He's going to be Mr. Fo. But what I wonder is what we're going to look at him like if he does these things kind of in the ring chasing mode.
As
opposed to leading the way.
Do you like the idea of LeBron continuing to change teams and proving he can do it in so many different places?
I like it because it makes the league interesting. I'd rather him in the Clippers 2 years from now than another run with the Cavs. And that's just because of boredom, I guess.
Right, I guess. So I think it's great for the fans as far as the intrigue of these new storylines. As far as, I guess, legacy goes or how we view his through line as a player, do you think it changes how you see him if he has a bunch of different stops?
I think he's already somebody that we've never seen before, and somebody whose moves we've never seen, and somebody whose sort of control of the league we've never seen. Therefore, whatever LeBron's story is when it's all said and done will be 100% unique, and if it means it was 3 teams and he won so many titles, then that's just a story. But you're still comparing the player and his ability and his accomplishments to other players, not necessarily what uniform he's on. But you do have to factor in the teammates, but it doesn't matter what uniform they're wearing.
But I guess there's a real feeling of things coming full circle, coming back to the Cavs, right? That he needed to go somewhere and get those championships and then come back and try to bring that to his hometown. What would the impetus be behind going somewhere else? Would it feel like he's then abandoning the place that he said he was coming back to save?
Well, he would justify all those things. Oh, I won a title. I did this. They treated me poorly. I didn't want to be stuck in the same situation. Real quick before we go. Andre Iguodala saying he didn't feel LeBron James kicking him in the junk. Good or bad for him to say? Probably not good, right? Probably shouldn't say that, right?
Going to recuse myself on this one.
All right, well, Sarah, I think we did a decent job here. Hopefully, we ended the week like normal people, talking sports, not at a club at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks for listening, guys.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.